10 random magic cards rated, day number 124. Happy Sunday, everybody. I got myself a little Diet Dr. Pepper over here because I was at my mom's the other day. She had Diet Dr. Pepper. I had one for the first time in 20 years, and I was like, this is pretty good, especially for I don't drink diet drinks. I think the aftertaste is nasty. But I had a Diet Dr. Pepper, and I was like, this is fantastic. So I bought one from the store this morning, all excited about it, gonna get a Diet Dr. Pepper. It's pretty good. The problem with Diet Dr. Pepper, I'm just now realizing, is that when you drink it, it makes you thirsty. That seems wrong. Why would it make you thirsty? Makes me not want to drink any more of it. It is pretty delicious, though, I gotta say. It's also poison. So let's move on to the first card of the day. It's Zigana, Utopian Speaker over here from Ravnica Allegiance. This is 4 mana, 2 a green and a blue for a 4/4 legendary Merfolk Wizard. When it ETBs, if you control another creature with a +1/+1 counter on it, you get to draw a card. You can also pay 6 mana and adapt 4. So if this creature has no +1/+1 counters on it, you put 4 +1/+1 counters for that 6 mana. So this is actually kind of an 8/8. It's going to cost you 10 mana for your 8/8, but you pay it in installments. So if you untap with it on the table the turn after you play it, or a turn or two after that, you'll get a much larger creature to swing in. But for the most part, what you really want is a 4/4 draw a card for 4 mana. This tried to see some play back in the day. Oh, and by the way, each creature you control with a +1/+1 counter on it has trample. I don't know if I got that the first time that I read it just then. I honestly can't remember. But yeah, that's an important bit of the card too. Trample's good in +1/+1 counter decks specifically. Because, you got all these huge, tall guys, so they got to be able to get through and can't just be chump blocked. So this tried to see some standard play and did. It did see a little bit, but not a whole lot throughout its whole life cycle. A 4 mana 4/4 draw card when it comes into play used to be something that we're like, oh, but it's not as good nowadays. It's just, you have to be even better than that, I think. Still, though, I think I'm going to give Zigana like a 4.68 because the card just isn't bad. It just, in terms of baseline, like she's definitely more than approaching it. And it also shows you like kind of how good I expect a Magic card to be at the baseline. We've had this discussion a bunch recently. The cancel discussion. Cancel should be a 5. That's the baseline. Absolutely not. Absolutely. Cancel's like a 4. In the modern context, they're making... Have you seen the Magic cards they're making nowadays? Let's move on to Desert of the Mindful. This is from Hour of Devastation. This is a land. It's a desert. It enters the battlefield tapped. You can tap it for a blue, or you can cycle it away for 1 and a blue. So if you want to play a billion deserts in Pioneer, I guess you have the ability to do that. You probably shouldn't, though. A land with cycling is just always good. I've said this before. A land with cycling is always decent. I'm going to give this a 4.9. No, I'm not. I'm going to give it a 5. Like basic lands get a 5. Is this as good as a basic land? Probably not a lot because it comes into play tap, but it does have an important land type. It does cycle away, which is kind of the best part of the card. So, I do think it's like you'll probably play a basic land over this a lot, though. But maybe I'm just being a grumpy Gus today or something with my ratings, but there's a version of me on some days that'd be like, it gets a 6. It's a land that cycles. But not today for some reason. I'm not feeling it as much, but maybe I am not giving it as much credit as I should, which is probably the case. We'll move on to Aura Shards. Originally printed in Invasion, this card's very good. It currently stands at $15 or so for most versions, although there is a list version for about $8. So keep that in mind. But Aura Shards is 3 mana, 1 a green and a white for an enchantment. Whenever a creature comes into play under your control, you may destroy target artifact or enchantment. Wow. That's just unbelievably good in Commander. It just is. They printed the card a few times. Some of that has been secret layer drops. I do think that they really need to print this outside of just list in Commander. They printed it in one Commander product, right? It needs to be in more than that. Like this is an uncommon that's $15. But there's a reason. There's a reason that's true. This card is just cracked. They did not have the future in mind. Like, in the future, there's going to be a multiplayer format where they didn't really think about that. Aura Shards, guys, is like a 7.5. This absolutely wreaks havoc on boards once it's in play. Great, obviously, in this color combination, right? Selesnya's got creatures, it's got tokens and all that. Selesnya also, for what it's worth, cares about artifacts and enchantments. And this is an enchantment. So like this can go in your Enchantress deck, where you're playing creatures, you're playing enchantments, you're playing enchantresses, you're playing Optimistic Scavenger and Generous Visitor, and creatures like Kami of Transience or whatever. Like there are creatures obviously in your Enchantress deck. And whenever you play one, you get to blow up one of your opponent's best things. Because this is Commander we're talking about. There's plenty of artifacts and enchantments to go around. This card is busted. 7.4 at the very least. Seriously. Victimize is up next. A favorite of mine. Because again, in case I haven't really hammered this in, I like Elasil Core. I like Judith. I like black decks in Commander where you sacrifice stuff and your cards don't cost a whole lot of mana. And Victimize is amazing in these decks. This is 3 mana, 2 and a black for a sorcery. Choose 2 target creature cards in your yard. Sacrifice a creature. If you do, put the 2 chosen creatures into play tap. You know, the other day we reviewed that card. It was like a 4 mana sorcery in black. Sacrifice a creature, draw 3 cards. And I said there's so many better ways of sacking creatures in your black decks than a card like this. And Victimize is a pretty good example of that. For the most part in these decks, you do want your, sacrifice effects to be free, repeatable, and on a stick, like a corn dog, right? All of those things. I wish corn dogs were free and repeatable. Can you imagine? That would actually be a health crisis, but I would be a part of it. I already kind of am. I ate corn dogs yesterday, but one way or the other. Yeah, you want your sack outlets to be, Woe Strider, Nantuko, Husk level, Bartolome, right? They're just on the table. They're free. I can do those as many times in a turn as I want. Some of these one-off sacrifice effects aren't as good in these Aristocrats decks. Victimize is an exception to that rule. Victimize is insane. It gets back like your 2 most important creatures, 2 of your Blood Artist effects, or your Midnight Reaper in a Blood Artist of some kind, right? Like a Zulaport Cutthroat or whatever. It just keeps all of your most important pieces in play. And also, if you do have Blood Artist or Midnight Reapers or anything that has, death triggers in play, then it will trigger those for you too. It'll put a creature in your yard that you can, get back later, and you have all kinds of ways of doing that. You can Victimize it again with a different, copy of Victimize, or not in Commander, but you can get the Victimize back and then cast it again from your yard. You can have like Phyrexian Reclamation getting your guys back. There's all kinds of ways to sack dudes and get them back. That's like one of the whole things that Aristocrats wants to do. So just because you go down on board presence doesn't mean you won't get it right back. And Aristocrats doesn't mind going down on board presence in the first place, but you'll go down on board presence and come right back up on board presence. I am mostly reanimating like 2 and 3 drops in my decks with this, but there's obviously the case that you can, reanimate 7 drops with a Victimize. 2 of them. For 3 mana, you can sack a 2-drop to a Victimize and somehow get back, a Traxa and a Tally or whatever you want to do. These are all ridiculous things to do with Victimize. Absolutely bonkers Magic card. Really, 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 really good. And in some ways unassuming. I think there's some people who look at Victimize and like, and I just don't know what you're smoking on, because Victimize is actually, in some ways, one of the best reanimator spells they've ever printed in the history of Magic. So all that considered, I'm going to give Victimize a 7.4. The same thing I gave Aura Shards. I'm not even like meaning to do that. I really think Victimize is up there. But no, I'll bring it down slightly. I'll give Victimize a 6.9. I think it's kind of more in line for that kind of score. I do, but this is a fantastic removal. Make no mistake. This is a wonderful, wonderful spell. We're getting some good ones today. We're only 3 cards in. Exhilarating Elocution from Strixhaven is up next. 4 mana, 2 and an Orzo for a sorcery. Put 2 +1/+1 counters on a creature you control. Other creatures you control get +1/+1 until end of turn. At sorcery speed, it's not super good, I would say. Not often you see this effect in Orzo. You'll see it in like mono white, but not often in Orzo, so that's kind of neat. But it's really the only thing about the card that's neat, that's good at all. We will give this a 1.9. Maybe I'm stingy today. I'm not sure, but Rakus Spinner is up next. 6 mana, 5 and a green for a 5/7 spider with reach. This is originally printed in Magic 2012, by the way. Tap an untapped spider you control to search your graveyard and or library for a card named Arachnus Web. Put it on the battlefield attached to target creature. If you search your library this way, shuffle up. Arachnus Web is 3 mana, 2 and a green for, oh yeah, I know what this is. For an enchant creature. The enchanted creature can't attack or block, and its activated abilities cannot be activated. At the beginning of the end step, if enchanted creature's power is 4 or greater, destroy Arachnus Web. So if the creature gets too large or was too large in the first place, then the web will fall off because it gets out of the web. It fights out of the web. Good flavor on that one. But yeah, Arachnus Web is in the mono green cube right now, whereas Rakus Spinner is not. So, because I don't really want a 6 mana 5/7 reach, right? But I will say, maybe in Spider decks, it only does the one thing one time, though, in Spider decks. So it's pretty bad. It's pretty bad, all things considered. But it does go search a removal spell, you know, and you don't even have to pay for the removal spell. It just throws it onto the table attached to a guy. It's cute. But I'm still just going to give this like a 3.8 or something, you know, give or take a point or two, honestly. Next is Sylvan Ranger. We have done Sylvan Ranger before. This is a card that I love very much. I love very, very much. Kavu Predator right here is from Planar Chaos. 2 mana, 1 and a green for a 2/2 Kavu with trample. Whenever an opponent gains life, put that many +1/+1 counters on predators. Really, really screw with the life gain decks. And hey, enough decks in standard nowadays have like incidental life gain that gains like a life or 2 at a time here or there, that I actually think Predator would be like a fun little guy to have access to in sideboards and stuff. Also needed, he puts that many counter, not just a counter, that many counters. Very cute. Lightning Helix puts 5 counters or 3 counters on it, makes him a 5/5. Very nice. But still, this I can't like say it's that great because it's not. That would be irresponsible. Although I am very irresponsible, both in my personal life too often and on this series too often. So let's give it a 3 point. Well, no, it's a 2 mana 2/2 trample. That's not that bad, right? Just in and of itself, it could be worse. So I'm going to give it a 4. I'm actually going to put a 4 on this. It cares about what your opponents are doing, but at least it's a decent baseline to start with. Nadir Kraken. Nadir Kraken. Have we done Nadir Kraken before? Have we done this card? It's 3 mana, 1 and 2 blue for a 2/3 Kraken that's looking an awful lot, suspiciously to me, like Ultros from Final Fantasy 3/6. Whenever you draw a card, you may pay 1. If you do, put a +1/+1 counter on Kraken and create a 1/1 blue tentacle creature token. This card was just printed for the first time in Theros Beyond Death a few years back. And yet it's already been printed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times outside of that. It's in Foundations Jumpstart. All I saw was Foundations for a second. I was like, it's playable in Standard, but no, it's in Foundations Jumpstart, meaning it's not. But yeah, man, it's been printed a bunch because people really like this card. It's still relatively cheap to get a copy of now, like 20 cents to get a copy of Kraken, probably because a lot of those reprintings. But this is a card that I will always love in mono blue decks. I really will. I don't know that we have not rated this card before, but it is one that I will stop for because I love talking about it. I really do, man. You're going to draw a bunch of cards, right? Whether you're drawing them during your draw step or you're just drawing them because you're in blue. So that's a lot of potential, tokens. That's a lot of potential buff for this dude. But man, the tokens are where it's at with Kraken. So I like this card. I'm going to give it a 5.59. And again, a lot of that just comes from how much love I have for it. But this is a great card. If we ever do mono blue cube, you can bet your bottom butt the Kraken's going in it, man. It's such a sweet card. Snow Covered Forest, a 5. I like snow covered art. It's pretty. It's very pretty. Good job, Jim Nelson. Scion of the Wild over here from Ravnica City of Guilds is 3 mana, 1 and 2 green for a star avatar bars. Scion of the Wild's power and toughness equal the number of creatures that you control. Man, we've come a long way, haven't we? Beauregard Mentor costs 2/3 what this costs. You get a 33% discount on a Beauregard Mentor, and they gave it trample. A little harder to cast, but still, Regal Bunnycorn. Regal Bunnycorn is you get a 33% discount, and it doesn't just count the number of creatures you control. It counts the number of non-land permanents you control. We've come a ways. That said, this card still looks cool. It still does, man. 4.61. No, 4.58. A loss of 0.03 points there out of nowhere. But this is, even if it's just a huge guy, that's all it is. You know, it doesn't have any keyword abilities. 100% like French vanilla. So, yeah. Yeah, it's just a huge guy. And that'd be okay for 1 or 2 mana. It's not as good at 3. So, Haze of Rage is up next from Future Sight. 2 mana, 1 and a red for a sorcery with buyback 2. Creatures you control get +1/+0 till end of turn. And it storms. I see. So if you have enough mana to buy it back, cast it again, buy it back, cast it again, then it'll storm and all your dudes will get huge. That's actually very cute. This card costs $5.84 from Future Sight. And from Time Spiral Remastered, it's under $1, but it's still like 76 cents. So that hints that someone is playing the card. Someone cares about this card. I feel like I'm missing something, right? Like all of you know about it, but I don't. Like there's like a modern, or not modern, but like a legacy deck or something that plays Haze of Rage, you know? And I'm just being an idiot. I feel like most of the time though, to really make this card good, you're not going to be buying it back and doing the thing it's supposed to be doing. You're probably going to play like 1 mana spell, 1 mana spell, 1 mana spell, Haze of Rage, you know, a total of 4 or 5 mana. Because, you know, if you go 1 mana spell, 1 mana spell, Haze of Rage, then you actually get +3/+0 till end of turn. And if you set up with like 1 or 2 early guys, that could be really good with like, you know, Monstrous Rage or some other good pump spell in the early game. Yeah, if you go like Swift Spear turn 1, it's still like turn 4 you're doing this. So I'm not sure what format it would be. But even on turn 4, you know, it's like Swift Spear, attack with Swift Spear and do like a pump spell or something, or maybe like cast a 3rd creature. And then on turn like 4, right? It's like 1 mana spell, 1 mana spell, Haze of Rage. So that's like Monstrous Rage gets +3, Monstrous Rage gets +3, Prowess is happening. And then storm in with this, all you guys get like +3/+0. But you're only attacking with like 2 guys. I don't know, man. I don't know. It seems like there's probably some sort of combo thing going on. Because, you know, if you're just in like an average, you know, spells-based aggro deck, I just think like you could be doing better things. But I could be wrong. I really could. I'll ask the audience, what do you think with Haze of Rage? Do you think it's a storm card that's actually good? I mean, the price indicates something's going on with it, but I really feel like I'm missing something huge here. And there is a deck this is like played in a lot, but I'm still just going to say like 4.4 because the potential's really high, but I think most of the time the card, like you just be doing better things. You just could be doing better things. But final card of the day is Rowan, Fearless Spark Mage from the original Throne of Eldraine. 5 mana, 3 and 2 red for a 5 loyalty legendary planeswalker. You can +1 row to have up to 1 target creature get +3/+0 and gain first strike till end of turn. Not great. On a 5 mana planeswalker, right? And then -2 row to have her deal 1 damage to each of up to 2 target creatures. Those creatures can't block this turn. Okay. -9, gain control of all creatures till end of turn. Untap them, they gain haste until end of turn. So that's good. And if you have Innkeeper's Talent all the way up, or if you have like Doubling Season, then you can do this ability when she comes into play. So in some ways, the Ultimate's the best part because the plus and minus, like the first 2 abilities, are kind of not good, like at all. Those are not good abilities, period. I don't even really remember this that much from Throne of Eldraine. Is it in the main set, or is it one of those like lame, like is it instead of a lame planeswalker, is it a lame walker? So I feel like we got some lames walkers in those sets, like Rowan and Will, but they're like outside of the main set in some like weird intro deck thing or welcome deck. I feel like we did a product like that, and this might be the result of it. Then again, though, that -9 says win the game, and with Doubling Season, it just works. So like maybe this card's better than I think it is, but those first 2 abilities are dog water, dude. I'm gonna give Row a 4.60. Do you even deserve that though? I'm gonna give Rowan a 4.29 and just kind of roll with it. You know what I mean? Again, that ultimate's great, but you got to get to it, dude. It's easier said than done. That is all the cards for Sunday. Have a good rest of your weekend, and I'll see you bright and early to start your week, guys. Everything's going to be okay. I love you very much. Bye.